no person that big, that tall, and that wide is going to have the ability to live their life the same way that we are. Marcus Hayes, of all people, who has theoretically watched every game that Joel Embiid has ever played, there's no question this column crosses the line, and in my opinion, Q, the narrative far too often crosses the line as well.
Joel Embiid is one of the best centers in the NBA when he's fully healthy. Let's place an emphasis on the when he's fully healthy part. As you know, he sat out 2 whole seasons at the beginning of his career, missed over 200 games due to injuries, and if a fan were to criticize Embiid's ability to stay healthy, that would be fair. But what's not fair is bringing up his children, his late brother, and then confronting him in person. That's what Philadelphia 76ers columnist Marcus Hayes did this season, and as a result of how Joel Embiid chose to respond to Hayes, he was suspended 3 games, while Marcus Hayes got an apology from the 76ers organization. Does Marcus Hayes have a point here, or did he cross the line? Does Joel Embiid need to calm down, or did he have an appropriate response? But I think the most important part about all of this is how did we get here, and what does this mean for the Philadelphia 76ers season? Because so far, things have just not been going according to plan. So before we get to the content, make sure you check us out on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat for some bonus content. And now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. PrizePicks' new feature has been making us so much money. We've been having a lot of success on PrizePicks, and now they finally launched live squares, meaning that squares will update in real time on the app in the middle of a game. So if you see a player is being locked up on defense, you can take a lower square. Or if a player is on track for a generational game, you can take his higher square in the middle of the game. If you haven't signed up for PrizePicks, make sure you use my promo code microphone to get $50 when you make a $5 play to take advantage of this brand new feature. We've been dominating with our NBA and NFL picks, and I post them for free on my Instagram at TheFlightMike and Snapchat FlightMikeSnap. And thank you PrizePicks for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? We need to understand how Joel Embiid got into this situation to begin with. Coming out of college, Joel Embiid was seen as a top prospect in the NBA draft, but he wasn't even the best prospect on his own college basketball team. That honor went to Andrew Wiggins, who was considered to be the next coming of Tracy McGrady. The thing is, teams were a little skeptical about Joel Embiid because he had surgery done on a stress fracture in the navicular bone in his foot. That immediately dropped Embiid out of contention for the #1 overall pick. Despite this, the Philadelphia 76ers saw the potential Embiid had and decided to draft him 3rd overall in the 2014 NBA draft. After the selection, Embiid would sit out the entire 2014 to 2015 season, recovering from his surgery. But after the season, it was revealed that the bone wasn't healing as expected, and as a result, Joel needed to have surgery once again, meaning that he was going to have to sit out the entire 2015 to 2016 season as well. This meant that Embiid was drafted in 2014, but he wouldn't play in his first NBA game until 2016. Fortunately for the Philadelphia 76ers, the wait was well worth it. In his rookie season, Embiid dominated. The only issue was that he would only play in 31 games due to tearing his meniscus in February and then having to undergo season-ending knee surgery. From 2017 to 2023, Embiid had blossomed into one of, if not the best center in the NBA, depending on who you asked, and was playing in over 50 games in every single season there on and out. On top of this, Embiid was drafted into the perfect situation. Each and every season, the Philadelphia 76ers found a way to put a promising contender around him. In the 2016 NBA draft, the Philadelphia 76ers were able to draft Ben Simmons with the #1 overall pick, a playmaking point forward that had the potential to have the same type of effect on a basketball team as LeBron James did, although not with as much athleticism. In 2017, the Philadelphia 76ers would trade up to the #1 overall pick and select Markelle Fultz, a prototypical guard that had the length to become one of the best two-way defenders in the NBA, at the point guard position as well, which was very rare, and the 76ers would continue this all-in trend. Whether it was trading for Jimmy Butler in the 2018 to 2019 season, trading Ben Simmons for James Harden, or more recently signing Paul George, the Philadelphia 76ers have been all in on trying to maximize Joel Embiid's opportunities to win an NBA championship. The only problem problem was Joel Embiid never played in over 68 games in a season. Embiid dealt with more knee injuries, 2 orbital fractures, several illnesses, and as a result of his chronic knee issues, the 76ers and Embiid agreed to limit his playing time in order to not re-injure his knee again. This agreement works for both sides. The 76ers make sure their superstar is healthy for the playoffs when games start to matter even more, and Joel Embiid doesn't have to throw away months and months of his time for rehab just because he had to play 35 minutes against a terrible team. Embiid's streak of playing 50 games or more in a season came to a screeching halt in the latter half of the 2023-24 season when he had to have surgery on his meniscus yet again at the beginning of February, which would have him sidelined for 2 months. Thankfully, Joel Embiid returned in time to finish the regular season and play in the playoffs, but in the summer of 2024, the 76ers agreed to let Embiid play in the Olympics for Team USA, where he ended up not only winning a gold medal, but also, in the words of head coach Nick Nurse, he didn't have any setback in his knee. Nurse went on to say that he's really active, he lost some weight, he's out on the court, it's just kind of sticking with our plan of making sure we are getting him in a really good place before we getting him playing live. This all, of course, led up to October of 2024, when the 76ers announced that Joel Embiid would not be playing in the Sixers opening game, or any games after that for an unspecified amount of time. That's when madness broke out in Philadelphia, and it was all because of one reporter. Right before the start of the NBA season, a columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, Marcus Hayes, released a now deleted article where he said the following: Joel Embiid consistently points to the birth of his son Arthur as the major inflection point in his basketball career. He often says that he wants to be great, to leave a legacy for the boy named after his little brother, who tragically died in an automobile accident when Embiid was in his first year as a 76er. Well, in order to be great at your job, you first have to show up for work. Embiid has been great at just the opposite. Now in his 11th season, he consistently has been in poor condition. This poor conditioning apparently seems to have delayed his debut this season. Now, before I continue, let me make it abundantly clear that Hayes could have made his point clear without bringing up Embiid's son and his deceased brother. I mean, pretty much a columnist's job is to bring you guys a piece of news and then give his opinion on it. And as a person that kind of does a similar thing in a video format, I have to say that this could have been done without taking such a personal shot. I mean, he's pretty much coming out and saying that he's disgracing his deceased brother just because he happens to be injured at the end of the season. And don't get me wrong, yes, it's very frustrating that Joel Embiid is always getting injured. And yes, you could point the blame finger at his conditioning. I mean, there's videos of this guy eating McDonald's before games, at least in previous years of his career. But you don't need to bring up the man's son. You don't need to bring up his deceased brother. You can criticize an individual's conditioning without bringing up personal details about his life. But for a reason only known to Hayes, he just had to include this detail before making what can only be described as an assumptuous accusation towards Joel Embiid. Now, after this article went viral, Philadelphia Inquirer deleted the article, and Hayes issued a statement on Twitter saying, "So I rewrote the lead to my column and replaced the picture, and I can see why so many people are upset about it. Sorry about that. Thanks for all of the constructive criticism." Being charitable to Hayes, maybe he did just have a lapse of judgment and truly didn't understand the gravity of what he was saying. But all that charity can be thrown out the window after one fan responded with a screenshot of an interaction he had with Hayes through email. And what we can see of the fan's email to Hayes, the fan said, "You won't apologize because you're a hack. I hope you're ashamed of yourself as much as the city of Philadelphia is ashamed of you. Worst regards. A Sixers fan is fed up with your garbage." Hayes then emailed the fan back saying, "Actually, I rewrote the lead. I changed the picture and I apologized on Twitter. I didn't have a problem with it, but numbskulls like you did, so I mollified you. Are you always this wrong?" After all this happened during a press conference, Joel Embiid called out Marcus Hayes personally, saying,
"Way too much, for this city, and putting myself at risk, for people to be saying that. So I do think it's bullshit. Like that dude, he's not here, Marcus, whatever his name is. I've done way too much for this fucking city to be treated like this. So."
After these comments, just a few days later, in a non-videotaped media scrum, Joel Embiid confronted Marcus Hayes, saying, "The next time you bring up my dead brother and my son again, you're going to see what I'm going to do to you. I'm going to have to live with the consequences." Hayes then proceeded to apologize to Embiid, but Embiid refused the apology, later stating that he doesn't care what reporters have to say, which I guess frustrated Hayes because he replied, "But you do." After these comments, Embiid assaulted Hayes, and although initially it was reported that Embiid punched Hayes, after more eyewitnesses spoke up, in reality, all Embiid did was push Hayes. After the incident occurred, the NBA suspended Embiid for 3 games, and the Philadelphia 76ers apologized to Marcus Hayes. In addition to this, the Philadelphia Inquirer not only let Marcus Hayes keep his job, but they allowed him to keep covering the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, you might be wondering why the Philadelphia 76ers would allow this to happen, and the truth is they're probably just trying to avoid a lawsuit. There's no video evidence, so we really don't know what happened, and I'm sure based off of who you asked, if you asked Marcus Hayes, he'd say he got punched, and if you asked Joel Embiid, he'd say that he was pushed. In my opinion, Joel Embiid isn't wrong for sticking up for his late brother and son, who mind you is a child and has no business being in these articles, but also Marcus Hayes is the sole responsible party in the whole situation for not only provoking Embiid, but using his family members as ammo to accuse him of not caring enough about basketball, which makes zero sense. Look, has Joel Embiid missed a lot of games in his career? Yes, over 200 of them. And that's not even including the 2 whole seasons he missed at the beginning of his career. Is it entirely his fault? No, absolutely not. Joel Embiid is listed at 7 foot tall, 280 pounds. He's an extremely large human, and this puts a lot of pressure on his knees and feet, the 2 most injured parts of his body up to this point. And he'll probably continue to sustain these types of injuries in his NBA career. And that's no secret. As evidence, look at this graph by 538 that shows that players over 7 feet or above are more than 8% more likely to miss time with injuries than the next leading height margin. This is just a fact of basketball when it comes to larger players. In fact, the NBA did an investigation into the 76ers and Joel Embiid's health. And although they fined the organization $100,000, it wasn't because they violated the NBA's player participation policy. It was simply because the president of basketball operations, Daryl Morey, and head coach Nick Nurse were simply inconsistent with Joel Embiid's health status and in violation of NBA rules. This is an issue because the NBA is currently partnered with several gambling companies, and if an insider were to have knowledge about Embiid's injury that the public wasn't aware about, they could make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars off of this insider information. It would just be Tim Donaghy Part 2. The NBA was already hit with a gambling controversy last season. If it were to undergo another one, it wouldn't just be bad legally, it would create terrible headlines for a league that's already seeing a viewership decrease year after year. You can have a problem with the NBA not creating entertaining games for fans and players alike, which is resulting in declining viewership. But how can you have a problem with Joel Embiid for trying to extend his career? Look at Yao Ming, for example. Sure, he's listed as taller and heavier than Embiid, but his career ended prematurely due to repeated injuries that he didn't rehab properly. Or more recently, how about the Los Angeles Clippers, who allegedly completely lied to Kawhi Leonard and may have completely ruined his career just based off of how they decided to handle his injuries. It's such a crazy and wild story that it's actually one of our longest videos on this channel, but we put a lot of work into it, and it's probably one of our best videos on this channel. I'll leave a link to how the Los Angeles Clippers ruined Kawhi Leonard's career in the end screen, and I'll meet you guys over there. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.